everyone, I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to the Melissa Maid Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello and welcome everybody to the Melissa Maid Show. And I've got a really freaking good one for you. So as you guys know, a lot of times I have people that come to me that actually ask to be on the podcast, which is very humbling and great. But I sought this individual out. He's become a really, really good friend of mine. And I think some of the most common questions I get from women on my social media, a lot of times are about hormones and hormone replacement. A lot of you guys know that I have had my fair share of dabbling in peptides, and you guys have even seen me sit in a chair that helps with my pelvic floor. Well, I have one source for all of this, and his name is Mr. Jonathan Herzog, and I mention Herzog Vitality Center all the time, but we met through Beachbody, believe it or not. He was one of the participants in one of my challenges many moons ago. And of course, he did really good. And so we were friends. And I actually had to ask him to remind me about how we became friends, because I told him, I mean, he's just the type of person that you feel like you've known your whole life. And I'm like, I cannot for the life of me remember how we got into, our friendship and also a business relationship. And he said, yeah, he goes, I reached out to you. He says, because of these peptides, he goes, I was very curious, how someone who takes great care of their body and is very conscious about their muscle mass and their fat loss, what would happen if they used, some of these peptides. So I got the opportunity to use them. And our relationship has blossomed since then. In fact, he's babysitting my in-body machine right now when I go to Mexico. So if you guys are in the Plano area and you want to give that in-body machine, you could go there and give it a try. It's incredible. But this is going to be fun. And I know exactly what questions you guys would sit down and ask Jonathan if you have the opportunity. So we're going to get started there. But I first wanted to give you a nice warm welcome, Jonathan, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm extremely excited, but I think with that intro, we can just call it a day. I think I'll quit while I'm ahead.
I hear you. It went so well. You guys have a great day. We'll talk later. But okay, so I don't even know where to start, but I kind of just want to start with personal experiences, I think, with what I've gone through. And it's funny, we will call them just an uneducated follower, ones that, when I did a story, I think, or I did some sort of video sharing my experience when I was using, which I would start it again tomorrow. I just haven't been on it for a while. We've just been so busy, but CJC 1295, I think it is, right? And ipamorelin. When I was taking that, I shared, my experience. You should see my experience. My shoulders were just popping, but I was talking about being on that and the difference that I saw in helping me with muscle growth and fat loss. And I had a comment of someone, saying that I was on steroids. So let's start, Jonathan, with you sharing just in general what a peptide is. We're going to go through each one, but not generally speaking who they're for. Like why are peptides available? What do people use them for? And each one has its own little tweak to it. But why are they even out there, so to speak?
Right. So we could get into really what they are first, because it's kind of a big umbrella, and peptide is kind of a buzzword, but it's like, what exactly is that? They have collagen peptides for skin. Now it relates to human growth hormone. It's anti-aging. What exactly is a peptide? Well, peptides are amino acid chains, typically smaller chains. So to give you a reference, A protein is a more complex, larger peptide chain that consists of multiple polypeptide chains, which is like over 50, right? An amino acid chain of over 50 typically goes into a protein. Shorter ones are peptides, right? And for those that just want a really simple, basic understanding of what they do, is they are signaling molecules. They latch on to receptors in your body and cause, through a cascade of interactions, signals, right? And so one thing that really makes it easy to explain, the peptide you were on signals to your pituitary gland to not only create more human growth hormone, but to release it into your body. So we're not putting in human growth hormone into your body. And I think that's where peptides are. Wow, what is going on here? This is something new, because they've managed to manipulate and synergize these peptides in a way that is better than our own bodies can do it, right? So, and with that, we can do several different things. We already talked about yours that you were on, where we create more human growth hormone. Why is that important? Once we hit the age of even 28 to 30, our human growth hormone factor goes way down. It gets a little tired. We start producing less as we age, and that's a huge part of the aging process. And so a great way to anti-age is to give yourself more human growth hormone. So that's a big one, right? But peptides aren't just about human growth hormone. They do other things. Another peptide called the Wolverine Peptide is they've mastered how a peptide can literally sense where you're injured, or where you have SIBO or leaky gut, or you have digestive problems, or you blew your knee out and you have torn tendons and ligaments. It literally signals extra help to that area through blood flow, tissue repair, antioxidants. It's really fascinating. And so what we're able to do is basically put a peptide into your body that helps your body do what it naturally does better. So we're not putting anything foreign in that your body is using. It's literally just a signal to say, hey, let's uptick this, let's downtick this. And they're relatively new. They've been around the US, I would say, the last 5 to 7 years. They've come on strong recently, but that's where the excitement comes. And the newness is where there's a little bit, I guess, less certainty about it thus far. But it's really exciting if you think about it in terms of, if we can manipulate reactions in the body, what other reactions can we do to really help our bodies, right? And there's a wide array of them. We have a few that we've really liked. And here at the Herzog Vitality Center, we've been really excited and really diving into them for the past 4 years, getting educated on them and seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of wonderful, wonderful results, which, you know, I could see it in your arms instantly. I was like, okay, it definitely works for everyone. and it works differently. So HGH, I mean, fantastic for lean muscle mass growth, fantastic for converting fat into lean muscle mass, fantastic for sleep. When we go to sleep, we secrete human growth hormone, which puts us in a deep sleep. When we get older and we stop producing as much HGH, that deep sleep fades away. So as we secrete more with the peptide help, right, we can get into a deeper sleep, our skin improves, meta-inflammation goes down, cognitive function improves. They did a study with older men that were suffering from cognitive decline, and CJC really helped memory come back. It helped cognitive function. So you can start to see the excitement of this new frontier, basically preventative and helpful medication.
Yeah, so many thoughts. You talked about the Wolverine peptide, and I've shared very openly that we have Mick on after his back surgery, and he breaks his foot. So after his foot surgery, and it's something that you recommend that people, if they're having, if they are going to need surgery, to get on it as soon as possible, because it's something you want to get in your system before the surgery and then during recovery. But for Mick, my goodness, you guys know frustration with my husband. full 360 cage, they entered the front and the back and put this huge cage on him. And 3 weeks later, he's snow skiing, which he was supposed to wait a year to do that. But he did go in to see the doctor, and he was absolutely floored. And mixed 50. He's not a spring chicken. And he's so hard on his body, but he was floored with how fast he was recovering. And, move ahead 9 months, and he breaks I don't even know if it was 9 months, breaks his foot. And same thing, they have to go in and they have to put a cage in his foot. That man's more metal than he is bone. And that doctor as well was just like, this is mind blowing how fast you're healing. And so he's a true testament to that Wolverine peptide. And it's something that I recommend to so many people, that if, they have an injury, or if, they have to have back surgery or anything of that nature, that they start on something like that. So it's a really good one. Is there, and like I said before to you beforehand, you actually had me on it too, because I talked about, I'm not the best pooper. I never have been. And I've tried everything. And it's funny too, because my daughter is the same way. And finally, just like a couple of months ago, I asked my mom, I'm like, are you a really good pooper? And she goes, no. She goes, neither was your grandmother. So it's just kind of hereditary, but you put me on that. And that was extremely helpful. And I loved how you said that it does help with people, with SIBO and I assume, IBD and IBS as well, that have all that inflammation it's just an all around really good, healing peptide, and something to consider if you've got something going on in your body that needs just that extra support. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's really fascinating about BPC 157 is, let's say, for example, Mick, right? Back surgery, blows everything out. You inject that, right? You inject it close to the site, or you can inject it into your belly. Different effects. It's going to immediately get in your bloodstream and go to those injuries, right? Now, if you don't necessarily have an injury, but you have issues like you talked about, you take that in pill form, and then it goes through your digestive tract, and it does the exact same thing. It sends help to where you need it. It shores up that stomach lining. It increases motility. It sends a lot of growth factors to help your digestion. Because as you know, in the American diet, everyone's got issues with their gut. And we've talked about this before. If your gut is unhealthy, you're in trouble. Your whole life is gonna be really difficult, because the gut relates to everything. So we've even started kind of thinking of BPC as maybe a yearly, once a month kind of detox for your digestive tract. In addition to, if you're like Mick and you have an injury, you need to have it on hand, right? So if you are going to have surgery, it would be really beneficial if you're wanting a clean, faster recovery to get on that, right? And to start taking it as soon as you're able, because that is going to literally, why they call it the Wolverine peptide. And what does Wolverine do, right? He instantly heals. It literally sends collagen, it regenerates. It's fascinating, and it will know exactly what to do better than any rehab or pain pills. So if you're wanting to recover quickly, that's another reason why peptides are just kind of a little astounding right now, and why they're so exciting.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking of you guys listening to this going, why aren't these more readily available? Why, has it not become like over the counter yet, or companies are selling it? And I talked to Jonathan beforehand, and you never know for sure. But I listened to a doctor, many moons ago, and he was talking about these peptides, and what he said, and it makes sense to me, is that, their prescription, and the pharmaceutical companies, when something works really, really well, they want to keep hold of it. They don't want it to go, over the counter or anything like that. They're incredibly safe. And as soon as we think prescription, we're like, well, are these huge side effects? There aren't, but the pharmaceutical company knows what they have, and they really want to hang on to it. And so everything does have to be prescription. I mean, every peptide, right? Except for like collagen peptides you get from Amazon are prescription.
Right.
Correct?
If you're getting them from a good source, and we probably should talk about that, doctor's office, right? Because you can get these via compounding pharmacies, because the big ones, they don't make them, right? So if you're getting them from a reliable doctor's office like we have, then yes, it will be a prescription. But you have another reason peptides are a little controversial is you can get them online from very unreliable sources, right? It's a little less regulated. And like you said, there's a lot of theories of why that is, but they're extremely good preventative medicine. And we typically see in that world that they don't really like preventative medicine. There's not a lot of money into it. So you have to be careful of that. And it's not very difficult. A lot of doctors' offices are providing peptides now. And yes, comes with a prescription, regulated, trusted compounding pharmacies. So yes, as long as you're good with that, they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I think that's where some of the negative, if at all, or unknowns come in. And so it's really easy to mitigate those risks with a trusted doctor's office or clinic that has a great compounding pharmacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about the benefits of their healing properties. I know my ladies listening would love to hear more about the ones that you have for, help with muscle growth and fat loss. And CJC 1295, Ipamorelin, and Amino 5. Are those the three that are specifically geared toward more body composition? And if so, can you go through the three, and do you take them separately? You take them together? What does each one do? Share a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we really love CJC 1295 plus Ipamorelin. Okay. We love that compound. No, technically they are two different peptides and you can take them separately, but them together, they do the same thing from different angles, really. So you have more production from the pituitary gland, more releasing, and ipamorelin does the same thing. You're getting more release and you're getting more production, right? Those two in tandem creates a really powerful mixture where you don't have to take it that often, right? You don't have to take that much, and the half-life is super, super long. So if anyone is looking for body composition improvement, to cut away some belly fat, etc., I would always recommend those two in tandem. If you can get your hands on it, which we provide, because it's just flat out the best solution for that type of thing. So body composition is going to change. You're going to start to look better. You're going to start feeling out. You're going to burn fat a lot better. It's going to improve metabolism as well. So shifting gears to the 5-amino 1MQ. Now this one's a good one to talk about, because we've been talking about basically triggering and signaling a response to improve something. Well, 5-amino 1MQ was studied, it originally came out with studying obesity and how do we treat obesity. And what they discovered was that people with obesity had more of an enzyme in their fat tissue called NNMT. And for whatever reason, sometimes we can overproduce that enzyme, and that's responsible for energy storage and basically fat storage. So if you overproduce that enzyme, you're going to hoard more fat, and it's going to be a lot harder to burn it. You're essentially slowing metabolism down in those fat deposits, right? So 5MQ was brought out to basically downregulate the production of that enzyme. And with that comes release of NAD, improves metabolism in those stubborn areas. So that one is also really good. It causes some energy. So that one also is really great for fat loss. Absolutely.
And you can stack those, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So they don't necessarily understand the intricate dynamics of why, but there is kind of an explosiveness to that. We have an Orange Theory instructor who she loves taking them together, and she gets a lot more explosiveness out of her workouts. And if you can look at blogs and so forth, there's lots of evidence of that. So those two in tandem, you're going to feel great and you're going to get a lot out of your workout.
So I'm on your website and I see I see you on there. And so you guys, if you go to HerzogVitalityCenter.com, they have such a beautiful website that really explains all of these really, really well. And I would encourage you to go there. But I'm looking specifically because I want you, we're shifting gears a little bit from the body composition and the healing to, I think I'm not sure if it's the PT141 or the MK677. This all sounds so fancy, but which is the one that has the melanotan in it. And I think I've talked about this on my social media before, this peptide that it sounds like the perfect thing because it helps increase libido. It gives you a natural tan without having to be out in the sun all day long. It's incredible. There's like the laundry list of things that it has the potential to do. Makes your jaw drop. And can you tell me first of all which one it is and what this does?
So it originally started with PT141. And what PT141, which is a peptide, what it does is it works more on the neurological side and sends neurotransmitters to the pleasure centers of the brain, can create norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, which can really help with the sexual aspect of it. Your desire, your motivation, your quickness and quality to respond to sexual stimuli drastically improves.
Yeah.
So Viagra, right? Everyone knows Viagra it's a blood flow thing. Yeah. Well, this is a kind of an intensity in your brain thing where you enjoy sex more because you're way more into it, right? Yeah. Your response to it is higher. You're getting more dopamine. You're getting more pleasure out of it from your brain. And so as they were developing that, it actually works on a receptor in the brain that also somehow relates to pigment in your skin. All right. And so they tweaked that and they created PT141 is great and available. Yeah. And they tweaked that and they came out with what's called melanotan, where they found that this interaction actually caused, because when we get sunburned, right, we develop pigment in our skin to protect ourselves from the sun. Well, this does that without the sun. This does that without the sun damage. So how does that manifest? Well, it manifests in darker skin, into a tan, without really needing to lay out. You can activate that response very quickly. We have a certain protocol where if you get on it, really just lay out 5 minutes and your body will respond if you laid out like 45 without the sun damage, right? And it manifests with your skin darker. So it's insane. You don't have to go to the tanning salon anymore. You don't have to lay out in the sun all day. You can have this peptide that you inject here and there, and you get darker. Oh, it also helps with sexual function. It also can curb your appetite.
Yes, that's right.
Right? So that's when I first heard about that one, I thought, no way. And then I tried it. So it's a great way for people to get that nice tan that's not a spray tan, that's not a tanning bed tan, but really natural. And it's fascinating once again, another evidence of what peptides can do in triggering signals and triggering a response.
And I remember you telling me that you have to actually lay off because you were getting too tan,
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Is that such a thing? But, me and my research, I was listening. I remember I was where was I? I was at Grand Solmar in Cabo in the gym, listening to a YouTube video of these fitness competitors. And, they want to be that super dark tan. And so they were taking that as well. And they were talking about the side effects and they were laughing about, well, the side effects is you've got, more sexual arousal and that there is the side effect of decreased appetite. And they said the side effect of the tan is that you can stay tan. And it's like, oh, is that a side effect though? I mean, it does, I guess when you stop taking it, it will you won't be as tan, but it's almost like, because one of the guys was like ghostly white, like Ireland white.
Right.
Very white skin. And he was like, I was just blown away. And he goes, I never went back to that pasty white that I was, even when I quit taking it. So, I mean, that's not too bad of a side effect.
No, absolutely. And when I stopped and when people stop, your tan lasts a long time. So really, I mean, one vial of melanotan and you're going to be good to go for 6 months, if not more. So that one's, it's just fascinating what we can do. Now, obviously with that one, people that already have been diagnosed with skin cancer, melanoma, anything like that are more susceptible, probably want to stay away from this. All right, because in growing that melanin, it can affect
Sure.
that as well. And if you're at risk for skin cancer or have it, then being out in the sun at all is probably not a good way to go. But
Right.
hopefully in the future, there's another peptide that can take care of that too.
Absolutely. And it's funny you said that, because I remember hearing them talk about it thickens the skin, which is actually a good thing, because as you get older, your skin thins. So, I mean, that's why you see the vascularity, and, and those old people look like they have that very thin skin, but it
Right.
actually helps create a thicker skin, and which would help with wrinkles, I would assume too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy. So again, I'm staring at your beautiful website, and I see the MCella, and I know you have the MCella chair, and people have seen me sitting on that. And without a shadow of a doubt, it has been helpful to me. Having two large babies, being in my late 40s, I noticed that when your bladder just knows. And when you're pulling into the driveway of your house and you have to pee, it's like, I'm home, and it loses control damn near. And it has helped in that aspect, that I can actually make it to my bathroom now when I have to go really, really bad, that I feel like I've just got stronger muscles down there. And not only that, but also through the night, I feel like I can make it through the night without having to get up and go to the bathroom. And it's more than just pee, obviously. But can you explain a little bit about these chairs? Because people have, I'm not an educator on it. Someone tells me to sit on it, and I'm like, okay. So it's a great piece of machinery. You don't have to get undressed. You just sit on it. It stimulates you. It's not a bad thing to sit on. And it helps with lots of stuff for, obviously, I would assume men and women, but especially for women. Can you just kind of explain that chair a little bit?
Yeah. So obviously we treat a lot of women here. We
Yeah.
treat a lot of perimenopausal, menopausal, a lot of women that have had children, like you mentioned. And what happens then is those pelvic floor muscles get weak. And over time, that can manifest in dribbling, where urinary control isn't what it used to be.
Yep.
And getting up in the middle of the night so many times because that muscle isn't solid and it's not holding it back, right? And so once that pelvic floor lowers below a certain kind of threshold, that control becomes less, right? And so what this company and what they've managed to do is find a way to high intensity frequency, basically stimulation, right? Which you can keep your clothes on, you sit on it, and it goes through this dynamic protocol, which somehow is the equivalent to doing 11,000 Kegels. And they've mastered a way to where you don't have lactic acid buildup. Because if you did 11,000 Kegels, you wouldn't be able to walk for days, right?
Yeah.
The soreness would be too intense. Well, this takes that away. All right. And so we wanted to provide, our female patients something that makes sense. And honestly, I hate to say it, we as men, we didn't know this was happening. We didn't know this was an issue. I had no idea. It sounds absolutely terrible. We are so sorry. But this is and then you do the research on surgeries that they've been able to perform with people with this issue. They're tens of, $8,000-$10,000 with really adverse effects. You can imagine that's a very sensitive area, and doing a very intense surgery down there, you're just going to have more recovery time, and it's not, and it doesn't always even work.
Yeah.
So this is a great way to really get at the base of the issue, which is a weak pelvic floor. And it tightens everything up. You can imagine 11,000 Kegels, what that does. It shores up everything. It makes it so there's no dribbles. It tightens everything up. We have a second protocol, which is more for less incontinence and more for just sexual fulfillment, where we increase blood flow, we increase sensitivity, we increase tightness, all with just literally sitting on a chair for 28 minutes watching TV. And as you know, it's hard to explain what the feeling is, but you definitely know it's working.
Yeah,
right?
it's just not a bad feeling.
and that And it can help men too, as well. It increases blood flow, because there's basically two parts to an erection. It's blood flow and then clamping that blood flow to keep it in there. And that
Yeah.
relates to the pelvic floor as well. So
Huh.
it's a great, easy way, non-invasive, to really eliminate that problem. And with every person we've seen pretty darn quick results. Even after first sessions, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get up once in the night. And then
Mhm.
for the ones that really want to test it at the end after 6 to 8 sessions, is they get on a trampoline and they're like, okay, this is for real.
Are you ready to learn the secret behind how I continue to be so healthy? Well, it all comes down to science. If you've been listening to my show for a while now, you may have heard me mention something called the Maid Diet. Yes, that's right, because I'm so passionate about how learning about the effects that nutrition has on the human body, I always seek to learn as much as I can and apply that knowledge. One of my best learning tools has been self-experimentation. And now in my late 40s, I have to say, I've done a pretty good job. It's hard to find trustworthy, even accurate information in this country. Between the influence of big corporations with monetary agendas, the nutrition labels designed to deceive, and downright misleading information that you were taught in school, navigating food and nutrition with your optimum health in mind can be quite challenging. Take the food pyramid, for example. In an ideal world, I'm sure we would all love to eat pasta and baguettes for every meal, but that's simply not what's best for our bodies, our health, and our longevity. Now, I spent years developing the Maid Diet in a way that I wish someone had taught me, and I break it all down in my Maid Diet course. People are always asking me what I eat, so we start there. What I eat in a day and which foods are the most beneficial. So think something in between the Mediterranean and the paleo diet. It's a lifestyle plan that incorporates moderate protein, adequate fat, decreased carbs, and an introduction to intermittent fasting. But please, I want you to keep in mind, just because I say decrease carbs, I don't mean decrease carbs in what your body needs. I just mean decrease carbs in what the standard American diet has become. You still get plenty of quality carbohydrates, just not in the mass amounts we have been eating to get us into such an unhealthy state. And of course, we're going to talk about what foods to avoid, because that's just as important. We even talk about how to eat healthy on the go, because let's face it, we're busy and that's just life. And then there's intermittent fasting. I share all of my favorite tips and tricks, and a lot of science are along the way. I could not say enough good things about intermittent fasting, and I'm honestly so surprised more people are doing it. You'll also learn how I've learned to balance my hormones and feel my best, because so many women struggle with this. And lastly, we cover the mindset behind making a change, because we all know that your mindset is the key to your success in anything that you do. So if you are struggling with diet in terms of feeling your best, or you are ready to take your health to the next level, I strongly recommend you check out this course. Now, the course is structured in 5 modules, 16 lessons, and a whole lot of research to back everything up. So I want you to visit my website, themaiddiet.com or melissamaid.com, and you will see a tab for the course. Click on that to get access today and learn why you should be eating this way too. Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say, before we moved back to this house, we had a trampoline and I was jumping on it and I was like, oh my gosh, I can give it my all, which I absolutely could not do before. And that's just sad. I mean, that is, hello, I'm aging. So I've been very grateful that there's something that's, not surgical, that really has made a tremendous difference in that. So I want to go, this is probably the most asked thing, and really why I wanted to have you on here, Jonathan. And this is how the Herzog Vitality Center really started, is with hormone replacement. And it's kind of crazy how confused women are about it, how scared they are. And we talked about this earlier about the women's study and stuff, and how that really, I mean, it's like Angel Keys with fat. He's scared everybody into ever eating fat again, which was one of the worst nutritional things we could have done to this country. And the women's study really scared women. And back then they were different, but compared to today, which is what I would love for you to talk about today, the bioidentical hormones that are available and what a difference it makes for a woman or a man that is, having imbalances in their hormones and how it can be life-changing for them.
Absolutely. And the hesitation there is for a few different reasons. HRT, hormone replacement therapy for women, has been around since the 1930s, gained popularity in the 80s and 90s with what you referred to as bioidentical hormone replacement, which is basically derived from yams in plants, where we're able to replicate the molecular structure of, let's say, testosterone or estrogen. And so we were able to basically implant that, and they started seeing really, really, really great success. And then 2002 came out, and that's the Women Health Initiative study, which scared a lot of people. And honestly, from the data, it showed, rightfully so. It was a knee-jerk reaction where it showed an increase of risk of stroke, heart attack, and cancer. And since then, they've gone back and taken a look at the data and in some ways refuted it. The reality is those hormones were synthetic. In that study, none of those were bioidentical, right? And with any synthetic aspect, the body's going to recognize it as foreign and can cause a reaction in some very unpleasant things. In addition to that, more evidence was refuted due to the sample, right? A lot of those women were obese, they were very unhealthy, they were smokers. And so that's kind of taken a backtrack, but the damage was done, right? It was gaining popularity, and then boom, this study. And so that scared a lot of doctors to move away from it, right? And that affects us still today, right? There's still doctors that haven't really taken the time to learn about it. Another factor is doctors in med school really don't learn about menopause.
Right.
It's a blip in the radar, right? They don't really prioritize that importance. And let's be honest, another aspect of it is the social construct we live in this country and around the world of, we'll just call it a patriarchy, right? Where men are really in charge of the medical system. And sadly, once the women has passed their reproductive years and their feminine beauty and blah, 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 they're not as important anymore, and that's terrible. And so, and then you have on top of that, it wasn't a great way for doctors to make money, and they had to sit down with a woman for 45 minutes to an hour because it's a very complex issue, and they would rather get the money for infertility. For example, if you look at money invested in research invested into helping women with menopause versus infertility, you can imagine it's a landslide, and it's not even close. Mm-hmm. And then recently there was a New York Times article that came out in February kind of showcasing this and how women have suffered in silence from menopause, and how this has kind of not been handled exactly wonderfully. So throughout time, the only way that you could get really reliable and great hormone therapy was from a doctor like my dad, who was an OB-GYN, 40 years, wonderful doc, and he could see these women progress into perimenopause and menopause. And he realized something needed to be done here to help them. And he went off on his own and learned about bioidentical hormones, right? He didn't learn that in med school. He didn't learn that in his residency. He had to go off and find it on his own. He's a busy guy. Doctors are busy. To be able to add a completely new skill set, not completely new for him because he understood how the women's body worked, but it takes time, it takes energy to become that specialist. All right. You have to go through tons of women to understand the dynamics between progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, right? And so that's kind of hard to find these days. Yeah. All right. But it is getting better, right? We do have more and more. And so that's one of the big things that we do here is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. All right. Because as we start to go through menopause, I say we very loosely, as you start to go through menopause, right? Estrogen decreases, yeah. And estrogen does so many wonderful things for our body. And a lack of it can lead to intense mood swings, It can lead to a dysregulation of body temperature, right? It works with the hypothalamus to help us regulate our body temperature. And when estrogen goes down, we have hot flashes, we have
Yep.
night sweats, we can't regulate, right? Cognitive function, brain fog, right? Memory loss. And so that sounds really miserable to me. And the fact that there hasn't been a lot of help there is mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
So there's my little 2 cents on it. But it makes sense as to why that is. And I think even in the New York Times article, it's like, if this was a man problem, or men started maybe getting a rash down there, or they couldn't perform at work because they're losing their memory and they had hot flashes and they couldn't perform at work, this would have been fixed like that, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. So it's been a little bit delayed. And also you can see how much money's been invested in ED medications, et cetera. So unfortunately, fortunately, I really commend my dad for really being an advocate for women and helping them not feel crazy and understand that this is fixable. We
Yeah.
can dilute these symptoms where you don't where you feel like yourself again, and you can be happy and confident,
Yeah.
and also within this kind of therapy we can add testosterone to women, and a lot of women tap the brakes on that. I don't want to be growing hair and turning into a man. Women need testosterone just as much as men, just not quite as much.
Right.
It's just as important for sexual health, sexual fulfillment, mood, depression, anxiety. And so
Muscle.
we're exactly muscle osteoporosis, right?
Yes.
And even cognitive function and Alzheimer's. So um, yeah, there's really an opportunity for women to get a lot of help.
Right.
And unfortunately, that always hasn't been the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of explained maybe why that is.
Yeah. And I think I think the place that you start, and you also help with thyroid testing and stuff like that, is for you to get these tests done and see where you are. If you just don't feel 100% yourself, or like you did 5-10 years ago, and you just don't know why, because nothing has seemed to change except you've gotten
Right.
a little bit older. My goodness, get all of these tests done and see where your levels are, your hormones are, and your body fat is, and your muscle mass is, and how's your thyroid functioning. I mean, it's just so important to start there, and it will give you so many answers to questions that you just are baffled by. Like, I don't understand why I can't remember things anymore, why I can't get this stubborn belly fat off, or I can't sleep well. I mean, there's just a whole gamut of things, and the answer could be on the other side of a blood test. And so invest in yourself and getting these blood tests, and then finding reputable people that can help you find the answer and help you balance things out if they're not balanced.
Absolutely. This all relates to life is hard enough, right? And
Yeah.
this all relates to if your body's feeling good
Yeah.
and you're going to be around a while and you have longevity, that just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to talk about this, something that you offer. And I always joke that I don't, you say everything so well. I mean, all of these peptides and stuff, and you said them so beautifully. Semaglutide, tomato toner. That's something that you offer as well. Something pretty new in your practice. And you've been sharing with me the amazing benefits that you have seen with women and men, I'm sure, but a lot of women who have come because of all of these things. I mean, they've had children, they're perimenopausal, they're menopausal, they've got this weight they can't lose. You even offer counseling. I mean, this is just a one-stop shop. And the semaglutide, I always feel like I have to say it both ways, is fascinating to me. And I know that right now it is very new. I heard that it should be or will be the most prescribed drug of all time, because it's highly effective. And so I shared with you that Dr. Lauren and I wrote a book on it, just kind of helping people through the process of, making sure you keep your protein intake high, and the side effects that you could have. And, will you be on it for the rest of your life? Is it something that once you get off, you will, be able to keep the weight off? Your experience so far, what you know about this drug for weight loss, because I assume you're more on the weight loss side than the diabetic side, and just kind of enlighten the audience a little bit more about this.
It's amazing. It's in the realm of peptides that I think is going to help millions, and it already has. It is a GLP-1 agonist, which basically it replicates a glucagon-like peptide. And why that's so important, and let's start with kind of diabetes and how this came to be a little bit, is for whatever reason, in diabetes, we become less responsive to this GLP. We don't make enough of it. And it's so important because it signals to the brain, hey, I'm satiated. So that's where a lot of the weight loss comes in, right? So the brain thinks, all right, we're full. I'm now going to release insulin from the pancreas. But people who are diabetic with metabolic syndrome, that insulin should, in a healthy person, open the door for glucose to be flushed into your tissues, right? And so you have glucose uptake. That's very important. That's where we burn the sugar. We burn it and we use it as energy. Well, for someone not healthy, that gets a little out of whack. And that response to the GLP-1 isn't good. The door stays locked. So we have more glucose into our bloodstream, which causes a whole heck of a lot of problems. Our pancreas is still secreting insulin. So now that insulin, that glucose gets converted into fat, and we have just an ongoing problem of efficiency that just builds and builds and builds on itself. Right. So that's why it's really helpful for people with obesity and diabetes. Is it something they're going to have to take for the rest of their life? It depends. People with obesity that have had it all their lives, that's a pretty traumatic disease. And if they need, and they have different, they have eating disorders, they have depression, they have a lot of different things that really make that disease worse. And, if they need to take this for the rest of their lives and it's going to save them, so be it. Okay, absolutely. Let's do that. So let's talk about our experience with our patients that we've seen. Okay, let's say you've been healthy, then the pandemic hits, right? And then you turn 45, you turn 50, and you put on 40 pounds, and you just can't do anything about it. You work out, you do everything, and there is just not a response. And sadly, that happens a lot. And there's a lot of different reasons why that happens. We've had women come in here and say, I'm literally eating 800 calories a day and nothing is happening. I'm working out, I'm losing my mind, right? So here's how semaglutide can help that person. The GLP-1 of a semaglutide is much better than the one we can produce on our own, and our body responds to it that much more. Okay, so not only can we get that feeling of not being hungry, we can then go into the calorie deficit, right? But also what happens a lot when people go into that strict of a calorie deficit, they go into starvation mode and the body shuts down and lowers metabolism. And so now you're just got a really tough problem and you're starving all the time. Well, we go into that calorie deficit, we're not starving. Our body signals to make more insulin and we have better uptake. So now we're being more efficient with our blood glucose. We're burning more food as fuel than we ever have. We're getting more efficient with that. And then on top of that, if we stay on it 4 to 6 months, our body learns from that peptide. It learns, the tissue gets more sensitive to taking that glucose uptake, right? So then our metabolism can improve. We learn from it and we kind of get that metabolic reset. So it's been wonderful for that type of situation, right? Or someone who's 20, 30 pounds, they haven't been able to get off in 10 years, or thyroid issues, etc. It helps with that. It's a wonderful way to reset that metabolic rate and to really get your body sensitive to be able to burn food as fuel a lot better.
Some of the controversy out there, I'd love your input on, is the muscle wasting that you hear, that people that are on it lose more muscle than they do fat. Is that preventative, especially if you're, I don't want to say schooled, I guess you would say counseled, and you're working with an organization that will help you understand how important food is, and if you do it the right way, you can lose the body fat and not the muscle. I mean, it's just not automatic that you're going to lose a ton of muscle.
Absolutely not. We have not seen that. You lose a lot of fat on
Yeah.
it, and a good way to prevent that, where people kind of struggle with it, is you are still going to get hungry at times, right? Your body's going to get really good at, hey, I need fuel and I'm going to burn it, right? So you're going to get hungry. The best thing, my experience is, and what we've seen, is not to starve yourself, right? Honestly, intermittent fasting, I would normally say that is amazing. Always do it. On semaglutide, I would not. I
Mhm.
would not, because you're kind of changing the game.
Yeah.
And when you need a little bit of fuel, have a few bites of a healthy protein snack or something, and then you'll be satiated. You're gonna get
Mhm.
a you're gonna get your insulin dump, and everything's gonna work out, and you're gonna use that little food as more energy, and that's gonna last throughout the day. Also slowing down motility, so it stays in your body longer. But in terms of muscle loss, no, like we see a lot more fat loss. And if the consequence of losing a touch of muscle to lose 30 pounds that you haven't been able to lose in 10 years far outweighs that little muscle loss for your longevity and health and cardiovascular health.
Yeah. See, you guys, what a good friend he is, how he touted intermittent fasting for me. But that is a really good point. Because I think even in the ebook that Lauren and I wrote, we both talk about intermittent fasting, but because you not only have a reduced appetite, but I've been told that when you do eat, you just don't feel like you can eat as much. So you're going to have to take every opportunity when that feeling of, oh, I am hungry, to get yourself some nutrient dense foods and to eat it when you feel that, instead of thinking, oh, well, I'm not in my window, I can't eat it right now, because you're just going to have such a decreased appetite anyway. So listen to your body during this phase of being on this, and you feel that need to put something in your body, unless it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Absolutely do it.
Right. And I think, versus someone who's diabetic and needs it for that reason, versus the obese person, versus someone like we see, this is going to be a propellant, a jump start to get back to where you want it to be. Because when you're on this, you'll notice how much we eat on autopilot. You notice how much you eat when you're truly not hungry. You notice how much you eat when it's just a habit. And what semaglutide does is it really takes you out of that, and you really learn good, healthy habits that hopefully you pick up during this little stretch on semaglutide, and then you take with you the rest of your life. That's how the weight stays off, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I have like one big final question for you. Again, I just see this beautiful array of things that you offer. Can somebody be on hormone replacement, be taking peptides for weight loss and muscle gain, libido, get a little tan, and can they be on semaglutide? All this, I mean, could that all be done at the same time?
All 10 of those, that becomes a little bit different, because you want to make sure you understand what's doing what.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
and,
true.
and so I would say hormones and peptides, totally okay. Even hormones and semaglutide, absolutely okay. Hormones and CJC, even different peptides together, right? 5-amino, CJC, DPC, all good to go.
Yeah.
With the semaglutide, we do have people that are very active, so we can get them on CJC plus ipamorelin
Mhm.
plus the semaglutide. So then we're building muscle, we're reducing fat. That's a little bit more intense performance wise,
Sure.
but yeah, they all work pretty well together.
Yeah. And I would, number one, the cost would be astronomical. Number two, I would never expect anybody to do that. But in asking, can you take everything together? Are there, which you guys are so phenomenal at, is really understanding the individual and what that individual is looking for, as opposed to just the masses and,
Right.
giving the masses the exact same thing, because you're just kind of making an assumption of what someone is looking for. So being able to kind of cater it to an individual person is obviously very possible.
Right. And in medicine, you don't want to try too many things at once because you want to make sure, okay, we're getting affected by this. We're seeing results from that.
Yeah.
We're seeing results from this. And so combining them all together, which you could do, we want to be specific to what the patient wants, because we want to deliver an ideal outcome. So we typically ask, all right, what is your number one thing if we could change that would change your life, that you just what symptoms could we get rid of? What would that feel like? What are your top ones? And let's get those addressed.
Yeah, that I actually got goosebumps when you said, what symptoms can we help you with? I mean, that's so powerful, to give someone their life back. So Jonathan, we were just about an hour and you crushed this for me. I feel more educated, and I already thought, I understood this pretty well, but I love all of the details about everything that we talked about. If you would share for people, if they have questions, because I'm looking at your website and it says, hi there, have a question, text or email us here. So, you guys are just so readily available for people. And I know you do some telemedicine for some of this, and you're in the Plano area. So, that's a big area to cover. Kind of share with people where they can find you, any services that you can offer locally and, through the World Wide Web as well, for people to get some more details.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website, herzogvitalitycenter.com. If you're interested more in the peptides, you click on peptides and a pop-up will come in and you can request more information about that. If you have a specific question, dive into that. We get those pretty immediately and can respond very well. We're also very active on Instagram, Herzog Vitality Center, where you can DM us. We're pretty responsive there if you have a specific question. And then if you are more long-winded and need an email, you can email us at info@herzogvitalitycenter.com. But we're pretty active on Instagram. We post a bunch there, answering questions. We have firsthand experiences of people who've been on semaglutide and what their experience has been like, what our process is like, peptides. And then I'll also throw this in. We are running, we're going to do a special 10% off all of our peptides from now through the end of July. So it's a great time to get educated. And if you want a little anti-aging boost, or if anything we talked about today, we'd love to help and facilitate that.
Yay. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been enlightening. And like I told you before you even started, this is just going to be a huge one for my listeners, because these are very, very hot topics. And I just love that you, being the genius that you are, have really made it so many things available in one spot to help. And speaking from personal experience, I know how your staff is amazing, absolutely amazing, and very caring. They make you very comfortable. They remember your name. It's all of that. It's pretty impressive. So thank you for doing this for women and men, mostly for women. And thank you for being my friend. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you, Melissa. It's been an honor. I think known you now up to like 4 years, but as we said, it feels a lot longer, and we're so grateful for your advocacy and to develop a space where your following really trusts you, and we recommend that. And so it's good to be in the same business.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, you guys. So I hope that you wake up feeling prepared, and I hope that you go to bed feeling proud. See, I was going to put those two words together. You guys have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.